All right, everybody, thank you for tuning in to episode number 6 of my talk show and replay series. So today we're going to be going over some Terran versus Protoss. Protoss versus Terran, and with me I have both Nyoken and Gypsy. Obviously both Terran players, but at the same time, they can still provide some good insight from the other side as we go over this replay. So, going over the agenda really quick, we are going to do a replay between Dewalt versus Light. That's Light the Pro Gamer. So this is a really cool replay, really good game that I saw earlier that I also think, not the crazy, not like the standardist of standard games, but at the same time, I think it is still pretty solid, at least to analyze. We can also go over a game that our very own Gypsy played against Rain, where he just got absolutely annihilated, and maybe we can just go into some of like the details of how a guy like Gypsy gets annihilated. And I know that's not that hard, but still, it was pretty bad. Anyways, oh shoot, Gypsy's back already. Oops, I thought you were in the bathroom. All right. Okay, but yeah. And then after that, we have one submitted replay from a viewer, and then after that, we'll just go ahead and start talking about I don't know, some Q&A, future of the talk show series, and I don't know, whatever else we want to talk about. So, all right, without further ado, we're gonna go start this replay. So, let's see this. I got this off the Foreign Brew War Discord. So, both of you guys have not seen this?
No.
Yeah, I think it's a ladder game, and it's funny because I heard about this, and I've played Light on the ladder too, but I heard Light is like a crazy BM dude on ladder. Have you guys ever played him and experienced the same thing?
I played him on iCup 10 years ago, and it was standard game, and I was so pissed that in the rematch I picked Protoss and he didn't BM, so I don't have the same experience.
Right. Yeah, this guy, I mean, they're already having some friendly banter here. And he speaks pretty good English, too, I guess. Hoboxer 2 is Light, the pro gamer Terran. And Dewalt is, Dewalt is Dewalt, obviously. If you guys don't know who he is, he's one of the best foreigner players out there. Probably one of the best foreigner Protoss, maybe next to, like, Bonnet, I guess. Alright, anyways, so let's speed this up. Let's just kind of go through some of the builds that Dewalt's doing. So we do have Dewalt up here on a one-on-one map as on what is this, Polaris Rhapsody? So how does this map play out, Terran versus Protoss?
Well, usually Terran can't get a third base very easily, so they end up going for harassment type builds, like 1-fact dropship or 2-fact dropship, and then normally into 5-fact. Now that could be with upgrades or not upgrades, but that's generally how it goes. And then Protoss can go 2-base ARB, then go 2-base carrier, then go 3-base. But in my experience on here, they normally go 3-base.
Okay. Yeah, so it looks like...
yeah, I don't know about that, though. Like, in my experience, they do tend to go Reavers into carriers a lot, too, on this map. But carriers are really good on this map.
Yeah. So is this favored towards Protoss or Terran? Do you guys know?
This is Protoss favored. 100% this is Protoss favored. If it gets to mid-game, which it always does, once Arbiters and Carriers come out, it's hard to deal what you gotta deal. You gotta put turrets everywhere to stop Arbiters, and then they don't even have to go recall. They can just go stasis. There's all these bridges and little ramps that they can stasis on. If they go Carriers, there's so many little ledges they can just sit over with the Carriers that they're never gonna die ever.
Right.
If I saw the map stats and it was favored for Terran, I would be shocked.
Yeah. I think this tends to be a pretty hard map for Terran as well against Protoss. So I think here we have Dewalt. I mean, he didn't even scout at all, and I feel like a lot of times you don't have to scout on a one-player map. I don't know, or you can do like a really late scout as Protoss, and it looks like he's just gonna go ahead and take an expansion. We don't know what Light is doing yet because I took off the vision. I'm just gonna look at it from the Protoss perspective here, but yeah, I feel like at this point we just need to figure out if we're fighting against a 2-factory or a 1-factory build, right? From the Protoss side.
Pretty much, because since it's 2-player Terran doesn't really want to risk putting a command center on the low ground. There's so many proxy opportunities. Even probes coming fast can harass it a long time.
Right.
So just in general, if you're playing a map like this or Benzene or any two-player map, probably 90% of the time they're going to go for 12 gas.
Yeah. Wow. Look at this light guy, super chatty. Okay, so yeah, I feel like in this position, I mean, like, do you guys, you know, why is it that Dewalt is kind of like staying back with his goons instead of like going forward? Is he kind of scared of a backdoor vulture or anything like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, like once you reached higher level of play, like pro level or amateur level, they mix in drops a lot. They even start floating like factories.
Right.
You cannot be like these Protosses on the ladder where they sit outside your NAT forever and leave nothing at their main. Because if that happened, vultures will run into your base and you will lose 100% of the time. But this does seem a little early for him to be back the whole time.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think you can get drops out. He was already back at 4:30. I think that's a little early, because if Light had gone for an FD push here, really you would want to kite the FD push all the way back to your main. So Dewalt is smart to send his units back, but I do think it was a bit early in this scenario.
Right. Yeah, because that's what I also think too. It's like you need space to kite the push, right? Because it's like when the Marines move forward, you want the Dragoons to be able to outrange them. But it looks like, I don't know, maybe Dewalt's kind of playing with some assumptions here. I don't know, because he's playing against a pro gamer. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if he's
he's definitely like cutting corners here, because we saw him go for the robo right away.
Right.
Usually, you want to have the 2 gateways up early for the extra goon production to hold off like really high Marine count FD pushes.
Right.
But I think on this map, you can most of the time assume that the Terran's not going to do that, because it's really hard to push over the bridges.
Right.
But that being said, like, I do think that this was more of a greedier play from Dewalt.
Right. Look at Light, dude. You know, fast orbit. Yeah, so I think usually when you get your fast second gas like that, you go for a straight, you know, Citadel. You know, I think, like, usually if you go for this build, this is the 2 base Arbiter build, and I think after that, then you start getting your 3rd base, right? So the advantage of this build in general is that you get your Arbiter, you know, close to like that 11:30, and you have a time for enough energy for recall, right? So that I think that forces the Terran to kind of stay in their base, maybe turret up before they move out, right? Is that how you deal with a quick Arbiter play?
Yeah, so you can just go 2 base, 2-1 push, like we're seeing Flash use quite often right now, because blockchain is a map. That's all I can really say about that map. It's pretty cancer, but you can go 2 base, you can go 3 base, like we're seeing Light here. But if you're gonna go 3 base, you're gonna be sitting in your main for a while, because you know that there's gonna be multiple arbiters when you push out. It's not gonna be normal 1 arbiter. And if you push out with 1 group of tanks, like you see Flash do a lot of times at 12 minutes, like 12 or like less than 15 tanks, if you get stasis twice, it could potentially hit, you know, 80% of your tank count. Yeah. So Light here, since he's going for 3 base, I expect him to sit in his base probably until 14 minutes. Yeah. Get his tank count up to like 20. Because now, even if they get stasis, at least there's going to be a ton of tanks. And Dewalt, he's going to hurt his econ by going 2 base like this. But as I say that, he's double expanding. So,
well, see, the thing here, when you go fast arbiter as Protoss, there's you have to really identify if the Terran's going for stronger 2 base or you know, faster 3 base play, because you can't actually get arbiters and bases and units all at the same time. You can only invest either in tech and economy or in units and economy. And if you know, like here, Dewalt got a full scout off, and he saw exactly what the Terran's doing, which is just the standard like 3 base 2-1 play. And because he scouted all of this, he can very safely double expand here. Plus, he didn't really. When you do these tech builds, you want to keep goon production going. he didn't really. It doesn't seem to me like he skipped out much on the goons. So he has a pretty adequate army to be defending anything that would come out from the Terran. But as Protoss, you really need to sort of establish what the Terran's doing first and foremost. And that's why you see him double expanding, because he knows the Terran's going to be on 3 bases. He wants to get to 4 bases and eventually to 5 bases, because a good rule of thumb in PvT is you want to have 3 bases to the Terran's 2 or 5 bases to the Terran's 3.
Yeah.
Now, on this map, since the 3rd for Terran doesn't usually have gas, it's not that scary.
Right.
So here, this map, like, I think the map advantage here for Protoss makes it so that you don't necessarily have to go up to 5 bases to have a solid win condition.
Right.
Unlike other, like, maps like a Fighting Spirit or something like that.
Right. Yeah. And I like what you said there, because I think that first observer tells you everything, and that's probably one of the most important things for every single Protoss player to, like, actually get that scout off, to actually know what to do, right? Because I think that observer, if you get it at like a decent timing, it gets to their base at around 7:30ish. I mean, give or take depending on your build. But that first observer tells you whether or not they're going for a 3 base or a 2 base push, right? And like, I think those are kind of the differentiating points for your build. Because if we saw a 2 base push, we'd probably see Dewalt put down gates, get leg upgrades on 2 base arbiter, and then get an army out. I don't even know if he'd take a 3rd base that quickly. I mean. So
no, definitely not.
Right, because
he
you
would
can't
definitely
afford
go up to like 5 gateways or 6 or something, and just continuous army production with the arbiters.
Right. Yeah. In order to defend the push, right? But because you saw that 3rd command center, that was a tell for him to go ahead and take 2 more bases, so that he can gear up for this next big push, which we went over last week. That's probably going to come out, in about a minute or so. I mean, a little over a minute, probably, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, okay. Well, first off, I want to preface this with saying that I'm a big Light fan, even when he was coming up. A big Light fan. But what he's doing right now, I was talking about how he's going to sit in his base probably till like 13 or 14 minutes and get 20 tanks. But this is looking exactly like 12:30 flash timing.
Yeah.
This is not what you do versus 2 base arbiter, because stasis is already out. Look, the first one's already up.
Right.
If he pushes out a minute from now, there's not going to be secondary stasis, but this second arbiter's coming out, and all Dewalt really has to do is buy time, even just maybe like 30 seconds, and then there will be 2 stasis. On the first arbiter alone, we'll have 2 stasis, and then possibly there could be 3 stasis. And look at our tank count. We're on 1 add-on. We have 11 tanks, 12 tanks. We're going to have 14 tanks or 15 tanks, and let's just say the average stasis gets 3 tanks. So we're going to be down to 5 tanks. When a fight hits, flat out, Terran cannot win that fight.
Okay.
They can't do it.
Right.
So, I really hate Light's build right now. Unless he's waiting, unless he's going to wait till 14 minutes. But look at his supply. There's no way he's going to not build any units out of these factories. He's almost maxed.
Right. Yeah, so that's the crazy thing, right? Because if you look at the Terran, let me just pause right now. Like, if you look at the Terran, like, if this were not a 2 base arbiter, then you wouldn't need to necessarily, like, stay at home, big all these mines out, like, really that fast, because the arbiter wouldn't have a recall at that time, right? Or would they?
They can have recall right now.
Oh, they can, even without the 2 base arbiter?
They can have, without 2 base arbiter?
Yeah. Like, if they went for, like, a 3 gate. Okay.
It would be close. It would be like, maybe. It would depend on how fast they got it, of course. But it's possible that if Light moved out now, he could get recalled.
Right. Okay.
I actually think maybe this arbiter could have been even a bit faster from Dewalt, because we saw him teching off 3 gateways instead of 2. So you can actually... I really don't know about these timings. I think you can hit a recall at like 11:30, 12.
Yeah. His arbiter timing this game is late for 2 base arbiter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, but either way, I mean, like, I think the threat of an Arbiter in general, it really scares the Terran into, like, you know, because every Terran's nightmare is just getting a clean recall inside their base, like, right on top of the factories, right? So, like, I think even having that fear in the Terran's, like, mind is, like, is, you know, I think it's a very important thing to kind of do. So, you see how Dewalt in here, he secures his 4 bases. I think as he starts building his army, he starts taking his 5th base, and then I think, you know, if you can take a 6th base, you know, go ahead. So I mean, I think that's what he's gonna try to do over at the 9 o'clock. But yeah, let's continue this here. Let's see if Light's gonna start to push out. I mean, he's close to max. I'm seeing some movement on the right side. And really, it's all about just getting the right engage at this point, right? Like just getting the right surround, or I guess what Dewalt's doing here is just counterattacking.
Yeah, I mean, he's just buying time. He doesn't want to fight the army right now. He's got 2 stasis, which is a lot, but he can just wait literally 15 seconds to have a 3rd stasis.
Right.
So you see, this is what I'm talking about. Now Light is turning around, but we're maxed. The tank count's not getting higher. Okay, well, that was not the greatest stasis. So this engage is kind of...
Oh, got an EMP off.
I
lost it. Right.
So this went about as well as it possibly could go for Light here. He's killing so much stuff. He didn't lose any tanks. And we're losing our entire army as Protoss. But Protoss still has 5 base, or 6 base even, because it's Polaris.
Right.
But Dewalt is kind of in trouble now, because Terran literally lost nothing here. And he lost all of his ARBs. Right. That was what your whole build was revolving around.
Right, yeah. And I think just having those 3 stasis, like you said, is really important because, you know, if you get those 3 stasis off, I mean, it's, you know, like, that's at least 7, 8, 9, you know, tanks, you know, taken out of the equation. So it looks like Light's going to move up here. And again, it's all about just kind of, like, making sure your hotkeys are, you know, intact, you know, getting your 1, 2, 3, 4, you know, getting those all in position here. So it looks like, you know, Dewalt's going to have to sacrifice a base here, but he is still remaining calm. He is just trying his best to, like, you know, get his army together so he can get into a position where he can finally engage Light's army.
I think what Dewalt was playing this was right, and even his counterattack there was pretty safe because he saw the army move on the right side of the map.
Right.
It's just, I don't really understand why he committed there. Like, he should have just backed off, built, like... When you go for these Arbiter plays, you really just want to buy more time to just get more Arbiters and more Arbiter energy, and the more time you have, the easier it is to win the fight.
Right.
You know, assuming you don't get EMP.
Right.
But that being said, you know, he's still fine.
Can we rewind this? Because what the hell happened? We went from even armies to Light just got murdered.
Yeah.
I think Light just took a... You know, just like last fight was terrible for Dewalt, I think Light took a similarly bad fight here.
Yeah,
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, this happens a lot from Terran's point of view, where they overextend. But if you look at the army, like, we didn't lose any vultures here. Basically, still pushing. We have how many vultures here? How did they all die?
Well, there's 1 storm, which is really nice.
Okay, they hit storm. But see, somehow, like, all these vultures just died to the gateway units before tanks even sieged up.
Yeah.
So the issue for Light here was he was just too far ahead. Also, we're not reinforcing at all.
Right.
So the supplies, even though they looked even, they're not even. So this was a nice pickoff from Dewalt, but really this was Light botching it.
So one thing I want to point out really quickly before we talk about anything else for, like, the Protoss players is that usually a good Protoss, what they'll do is you want to initially you start producing a lot of Dragoons, right? Like throughout the in the early mid game.
Right.
You want to make sure that you keep that initial, like, goon count up, relatively the same. And whenever you fight, all you're producing is zealots. And whenever you lose your frontline zealots, that's when you want to back up and re-engage the fight with your reinforcing zealots, basically. But if you look at now, Dewalt has to queue a bunch of Dragoons also because he lost a lot of Dragoons in that engagement.
Right.
But during that engagement, if you went to look at his production, he's always producing zealots because they're the easiest to reinforce in these fights.
Right.
So you have to, as a Protoss player, you have to really think about it as your core army is your dragoons, and the zealots are really your front line, the meat shield.
Right.
And as soon as you run out of them, like your dragoons are really the ones doing damage. That and like the splash damage onto the zealots that's hitting the Terran units.
Yeah.
But your dragoons is really what's important, like the backbone of your army.
Right.
And the zealots keep them alive. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's a great. I mean, I think the unit composition is always really important because I think sometimes like you lose the dragoons, but then you don't remake the dragoons, and then like if you have a whole bunch of zealots and that's all you have, that's probably the most worthless thing because then like a few mines can just blow up your entire army.
Not just mine, but also like siege tanks with upgrades. Like, you know, once you get a +3, like they just murder zealots that are clumps.
Right. And that was an amazing stasis here.
Can we pause though?
Yeah.
This is kind of what I'm talking about when you're facing multiple ARBs. There's 3 ARBs or so in this army. How many tanks do we have? We had 8 tanks. There's 2 stasis here, and we hit more than half the tank line.
Yeah.
You can't win fights like this as Terran.
Right.
So again, like, okay, this time now I'm looking at Lightspace. He's got a triple add-on, but we're being a little cocky here. Not like this.
Moving out like that fast.
Well, he can move out this fast if his tank count's higher.
Right.
But we just got our tank count reset at the NAT. And now, like, sort of what Gypsy was saying, you're building zealots, first off, because, you know, they're cheaper than goons, but also they're the fastest to build. You can reinforce fights faster. But tanks, they take so long, and you can't build tanks out of every single factory. So really, you're going to have to go through like 3 or 4 macro cycles as Terran, which is like 2 minutes of production to get your tank count up to a decent number.
Yeah.
I feel like since Light didn't reinforce that fight, he had some banking, and then he's already back out on the map before we did those 3 or 4 cycles.
Right.
And now you're seeing the result of this. We're just getting stasis, and that's it. And remember, Dewalt is not on 3 base here. He's on 4 or 5 base, so his econ's crazy.
Right.
Meanwhile, Light was on 3 base, so yeah, these engages are not, or these
also
move outs.
To transpose this to like the Protoss side of things, like there's actually, I feel like I've heard this sentiment before, but they're very scared of like engaging the Terran army. Like you always think like, damn, that Terran army is going to be huge. It's going to melt my army.
Yeah.
But you have to be aware, like when you take really good fights, like Dewalt did at the the ramp there at top left.
Yeah.
And you trade and you get a lot of tank kills. You have to imagine that the follow-up ball is not going to be that scary. So you can, even though you know it might seem scary, you can just go in and take a fight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think a lot of Protoss too. It's just like you kind of have to like, you know, I mean, you have to have like the balls to just like move into, because I think a lot of times if you don't, you know, if you don't like, if your attacks are not very confident, then like sometimes you kind of stutter, sometimes you take an extra line of tank shots or something like that. So you kind of do have to be decisive. I mean, it's hard because you have to be decisive, but you also have to be patient. I know, but at the same time, it's like, you know, like just to your point, it's kind of like, you know, when you're about to attack, you know, when you make that decision to attack, like don't hesitate. You know what I mean? Like don't screw up your attack because you're not sure. You just kind of have to go in, especially if you can get like good stasis off. And I love how Dewalt has like so many arbiters. He has 2 Stargate production. He can just constantly. Oh, he has a cute little recall there too. But
Yeah.
you can really take so many of the Terran's army out of play just with like 3 or 4 stasis, and it's just crazy how much you can do with just that.
Yeah, arbiters are. No, go ahead. Yeah.
I was going to say, this style, the 2-base arbiter play, is the style that I have the most trouble dealing with because it's hard to control EMP. And then even if you have your vessels with your army, a lot of times they're sitting over the tanks.
Yeah.
We talked about that last time in Terran vs. Protoss, where if the arbiter sees the vessel, they're going to stasis the vessel. But if they just stasis the vessel, that's not really a loss for Terran because they didn't hit any of your tanks. The thing is at lower ranks, the vessel's going to sit over the tank, and then they're going to get the vessel and the tanks.
Right.
But so yeah,
that's a double whammy.
Trouble facing this. Yeah, it's the double whammy, which what we saw in the middle, where like, okay, here comes the big stasis again, and we're just going to get our entire army stasis.
Are we though?
Okay, no, there's only one arbiter with stasis. But
okay, yeah, this is a little too ambitious here, but But still, I mean, I like what he's doing. Like, every Protoss in this matchup should always be very active with his army. Like, you see how Dewalt's always moving his army. You always want the Terran to be guessing, okay, is he going to attack on the left side, the right side? Is he going to counterattack me? Is he going to, you know... And I think that's one of the most important things about controlling your army in Protoss, because Terran is using scans and burning them just to figure out where you are, you know? And so I think always having your army moving, that 1, 2, 3, 4... kind of movement is very important in this matchup. So we do see another good engage here by Dewalt on top of the ramp this time too.
Yeah,
also,
you go.
Yeah. Okay. Well, no, I was gonna just mention like late game as Protoss. A lot of the times, you know, you ask yourself, well, what should I be spending my gas on?
Yeah.
And for the most part, it's really just more arbiters.
Yeah.
So you see this second Stargate here. Now, 3 Stargates is a bit overkill.
Yeah.
You know, like arbiters, they're only really good for their spells, and then if you have like 6 or 8 arbiters, like
they're 4 supply too. Yeah, they're 4 supply.
Yeah, they're a bunch of supply, but you have to assume like you're gonna lose arbiters here and there, but you really need those spells to fight Terran. Now, I would say, you know, this map is a bit gas starved, so I can kind of forgive. Not necessarily adding High Templars into the mix in the later stage of the game. I do think that that's another thing you might think of as a Protoss player is, you know, in terms of improving your army composition late game, is to start adding some Templar, because they're really good units.
Yeah.
Especially if you have the gas for it.
Right. And I love this because, you know, Dewalt again is using his mobility as the Protoss, because remember, Terran is really strong, but they're very slow in general, right? And it's like, Dewalt just keeps wrapping around, taking this, you know, attacking this base, you know, going around, like, always staying active on the map. And I think that's what also just makes a really good Protoss. I mean, I think also just kind of taking the map, especially, you know, when you can. I think when even just, like, throwing a probe to, like, an empty base, like, if you don't have the ATM, is always a good idea. So, I mean, Dewalt played this really well, and he's absolutely just crushing Light right now. I mean, you know, we did see Light make a few mistakes. Maybe he was a little bit overconfident with his pushes, but Dewalt's just punishing the heck out of him right now.
Yeah. Dewalt, see, what I like about him stomping the first attack is he constantly attacked after that.
Yeah.
He didn't let Light just sit in his base.
Right.
If Light sits in his base and builds 20 tanks, it's a lot different than facing 8 tanks, which is what we're seeing. Like, every single fight, it's been like 10 tanks for Light. And then if we stasis even just 4 of them, that's not really anything.
Yeah.
Like, it snowballs really hard when you ever have one fight for Terran to lose all their tanks. It just takes so long to reset. Right. By the time Terran wants to attack again, assuming they sit in their base, Protoss has the whole map like we're seeing here. Or Terran moves out and attacks again, but their tank count is so low, and then you can smash it again. But Dewalt's done a really good job taking the whole map, and then, like we've been saying, the 4 arbiters, the stasis, just stasis everything. Yeah. He has good fights the whole time. He's gotten good upgrades the whole time too. You see, we have Protoss with +3 weapon. You don't really need to get armor or shields. You really just only need weapon in this matchup, unless if you're gonna skip arbs, if you're just gonna go gateway man style, then my recommendation is you go for 2-1 as Protoss, because armor actually does help. Obisu.
There you go. So, talk to me more about this gateway man style thing. I mean, like, I get what it means just from the name, but is it actually a thing? Like, I'm actually just curious. I mean, is it just like, is it more of a gag thing? Like, is it when they just
can I actually comment on that, because there's something similar that I wanted to talk. I don't know if we'll get into that too much, depending on the other replays, but I think there's 2 real ways to play PvT, right? And one is what we just saw, the very fast route, where you get arbiters very quickly, but you have a lower base count. Right. And then the other one is expanding really fast, where your tech is a bit more delayed, but your economy is much better. Right. And in the first case, so I would say that kind of style, the latter, right, the high economy style, I think that's something you could constitute more as like the gateway man style, because it's not so reliant on arbiters and spell usage as much as it is on just sheer production. Right. And it actually, the dynamic of the matchup changes drastically with the style that the Protoss chooses to go with. Because when you're doing this high-tech thing, you don't have the economy to bank up, like, let's say, 2, 3, 4K before the Terran pushes, and you have gateways on all sides of the map. But what you do have is arbiters that have energy. Whereas in the other, conversely, in the high economy style, you don't have arbiters with energy. So you're more likely to lose fights, but you are more likely to win the subsequent ones. That is, you're more reliant on the reinforcement on the production side of it, rather than on the sort of recall / stasis. Yeah, and usually that's very map dependent. Like a map like Polaris has very few bases, so obviously it lends itself more to the tech style of play. Whereas, you know, like a map like the Circuit Breaker is way better for the economy side of play. But when you're playing that heavy tech thing, heavy tech style, the engagements are really important for both sides, because the Terran will know, okay, Protoss is playing this tech style. I don't have to worry. Like, if I win a fight, I am in a comfortable position because the Protoss is not going to have the bank to continue producing. And as Protoss, you have to be aware of that. Like, you have to use your... If you get your Arbiter's EMP, for example, you just flat out lose. So there's pros and cons to both sides. But that's what I would think. The economy style is what I would think is more gateway man style. I don't know if Nyoken has any other ideas on that.
So the economy style, the more standard style, I think that's good. I agree with what he said. If you want to see more economy style play, you should watch Best. Because Best is that type of player, but he has unreal macro. But if you see him play, he'll like lose a fight, but he's like insta remaxed. And he insta attacks again. He's nuts. But when I say gateway man, I don't necessarily mean that they have slower arbs. I mean they have all gate. That's the gateway man style. They're just pure zealot. Goon. There's nothing behind it. That's all they rely on. And if you're gonna play that style, you have to have upgrades, because 2-1 for Protoss is actually pretty good versus 2-1 from Terran. But you have to have those upgrades, because you're not gonna have any tech behind it. It's not like you're gonna lose your army and then, oh, here comes my arbiter, and then in the next fight I'm gonna have stasis. No, you're just gonna have more gateway man. But that's the type of style that Terran really wants to fight against, because they don't have to worry about stasis. If they even get EMP, they don't even have to have it. But if they get it and they hit any of your army, that's you know, hundreds of damage and shields that are immediately gone. So personally, I think either the ARB style, the 2-base ARB or 3-base ARB, is good. But if you're gonna go gateway man, don't like that style. It will work, of course, but the higher you go up, the less likely it will work. There's a reason you don't see gateway man style at high level.
Because you're just basically trying to because you're just basically just trying to, like, you know, out muscle a Terran. But like as the Terrans gets better and better, like, you know, their positioning gets better, you know, their mindset up, and you know, and to a point where like you kind of need that higher tech to deal with the you know, the army. But yeah, I mean, you know, I think this next replay is going to be an example. Now, this is a little bit cheating, because I believe Rain probably went for like a 12 Nexus this game. But I mean, this is also kind of just to illustrate, this is how strong a Protoss can freaking max out and just roll a Terran. So I mean, let's get this started here. I mean, this is probably more of a, you know, more of an example of like a gateway man style than a really quick arbiter. But I mean, I guess I don't know what to really make of 12 Nexus.
It's not gateway man, because this is, well, I've seen the results, so I won't comment since we're not there yet. But it's not gateway man.
I think this is just a good example of like what a Protoss build should look like.
Well, assuming you can pull it off. But so for those guys who don't know, on the bottom right, this is Gypsy, who is you know, on the Discord with us right now, against the pro gamer Rain. This isn't some, you know, fake Rain guy, and this is a ladder match that they played, I don't know, like a few months ago. And I was here when you were actually like playing this, and it was just insane how much this guy made. And I grabbed this replay from Foreign Brew Discord. But yeah, I mean, let's talk about Benzene a little bit. So like, how does Benzene play out on both sides? You know, is it favored in any direction, or what do you guys think about it?
I think it's a good map for both. Terran vs. Protoss is pretty fine.
Okay.
Again, it's a 2-player for map, so a lot of times you're going to see 12 gas, but of course Gypsy going against the meta here. But it is 2-player, and it's really, I think my biggest issue on here is how big the main is. You have to spam turrets, but other than that, it's pretty easy to get 3rd base and 4th base and 5th base even.
Yeah.
You go split map versus Protoss, or you just go for big 2-1 timing. If you can get, as long as you can get on top of the platform, I think it's an okay map for Terran. For Protoss, I think it's fine too, because you can at least put goons on the high platforms, delay pushes pretty long. You take 3 base easy. The main is really big, so reavers are a thing on here. You can go carriers. There's opportunities for both sides. I don't think it's really highly favored for either side. It's not like Polaris, even though it's kind of similar where there's a mineral-only 3rd base.
Yeah.
On here, it's much easier to get the corner base as Terran than it is on Polaris.
Right. So it looks like here, usually following the 12th Nexus, I believe Protoss needs to go double gate to kind of fend off like a, you know, like a bunker rush, right? So in this case, I believe, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, he went for a 1-gate gas because he saw this was a gas expand. Is that correct?
No, like, so there's 2 things when you're 12 Nexusing.
Okay.
One is that actually, if the Terran if the Terran's gas is expanding, usually the Rax is on the low ground, which actually makes Marine rush distance much lower.
Okay.
Like, you know, it's much faster. So it's actually easier sometimes when your gas is expanding to punish the 12 Nexus than it is when your gas expanding. Especially if you scattered right away.
Isn't the factory later though?
Yeah, but the factory sometimes it depends.
Okay.
Sometimes it's consequential.
Yeah.
Because but most of the time, like, the Vulture gets and the Dragoons are already out. But I think on this map, the point being that the Vulture usually doesn't help in getting the bunker down to kill the Nexus. It helps after that, but not for the killing of the Nexus.
Right.
But here on this map, Benzene, the rush distances are actually very significant, which is why I think you can get away with going just 1 gate. The problem with Benzene is there's a lot of proxying opportunities, but if not proxying and you're just building in your base, there's actually not a lot of opportunities to play aggressive just because the rush distance is so big as opposed to most other maps.
Right. Man, these Zealots, dude, I mean, I can't believe he just took 2 Zealots and ran them right by. Like, I've never even seen this kind of harass.
Yeah, so this is what pro gamers are really good at, is they know very specific timings that you don't really know. And he just, you know, Rain just knows, all right, when I 12 Nexus and the Terran goes, you know, gasless, at exactly this moment when I run in, he'll be getting his, whatever, like his machine shop or something. And, you know, to be honest, those Zealots didn't really do any damage, but they scouted. And that's what their job is for. And, you know, what did he scout? He scouted 2 factories. He scouted the armory. So here comes his 3rd Nexus.
Right. So he sees that. He knows what he's doing. So again, you know, every Protoss should know what he's up against before, you know, they just go blindly do something. Because usually at this point, Protoss wouldn't know what you're doing, right? Like, they have to wait on this observer that's going to get to his base in about a minute or so. But because he just knows he's going to go straight for the 3rd base, I mean, he's just macroing up. And what I love about Rain is he is not stopping his pro production. I mean, this guy is just on it. Like, he went 1 gate, he's taking a 3rd base, now he's putting down a few more gateways, he's got a Citadel going, and he's macroing up because he knows that right now he's not going to die, right? Right now is not the time to be cutting probes. Like, right now should be the time you're maxing out probes so that your macro engine starts kicking in later on. So, yeah, actually it appears that he is going for basically a faster Arbiter play, and he gets his Forge at the same time. You know, he gets the Stargate as well.
Yeah, I mean, he just has infinite money. Like, this is the power of getting 12 Nexus and just having the 1 gate behind it, and then knowing that you can take a 3rd base without Terran punishing you. Is you can just get everything at once. And we'll see, like, and here really the Protoss at TVP, like, it's not a very like in the early game, usually it's not a very exciting matchup.
Yeah.
Like, you know, there's no. Sometimes you'll get some 2 factory plays, whatever.
Yeah.
You know, there's some aggressive builds, but for the most part, it's really both players trying to build up until the Terran pushes out.
Right.
And that might seem boring, but the building up part is actually very dynamic between the 2 players, and it's very scout heavy. I mean, the Terrans constantly feeling the Protoss out with vultures. The Protoss is always checking, you know, with observers, you know, making sure their goons are back.
Yeah.
There's a lot of small interactions, and the small scouting that you do make contributes to your build order.
Yeah.
Like how fast you can get your 3rd nexus, how fast you can get your 4th nexus, how fast can you start teching up. Do I need to make units? Do I need to not make units? So for the most part, to most observers, it might seem like nothing really substantial is going on because, you know, really both players are just macroing. But really, what's happening is both players are like making very minute adjustments. Like, okay, I'm going to cut a round of units to get more production buildings out.
Right.
I know I can keep making workers, stuff like that. So it's all really kind of below the hood type stuff, you know?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Right. Yeah, so I mean, I've just been watching. I mean, he's getting probes nonstop. It looks like he's gonna go ahead and take his 4th base very soon. And I think most Protoss know this, but with their forge, you generally want to get that +1 weapons first, and then I think you really want to hit +2 around the time the Terran pushes out. Is that correct? Because I think that's what does that do again? Like you kill vultures in 6 shots instead of 7 or something.
Yeah, you kill them in 5 instead of 6.
5 instead of 6.
Tanks in 7 instead of 8.
Right.
You don't have to have +2, but it is a good breakpoint to hit if you can hit it. It's like, for example, let's say you're 30 seconds away and you see Terran moving out. If you can stall for 30 seconds, your army's going to be a lot better. But just having +1 is great here.
Yeah.
Gypsy is not going to have +1 armor here, so I think... I don't think +1 is a breakpoint versus +0.
Right.
Because Dragoons are still going to deal 21 damage. So it's still going to take 8 shots, so because 7 times 21 is 147.
Right.
But I think it might be a breakpoint to 5-shot vultures.
Right.
With +1 versus +0. So +1 is important here for Rain to get, but if he can get +2 for when Gypsy attacks, because that's when he's going to attack, and he'll be lining up for that because it's about a 3-minute upgrade. So we're going to have it at exactly 13. I mean, to have Arbiters already out and then to have +2 and then be on 4 base, either Gypsy's going to hit EMP or he's going to get demolished.
Yeah.
So, I just want to point out really quick one small thing also is you notice how Rain just in the early game really only focused on Dragoon production. He only had Dragoons. And then as he built up, all he was building for the most part were Zealots.
Yeah.
And that's because Zealots are just a cheaper unit. They don't take gas. And they allow you to get your tech hub, get your other buildings up. It's kind of similar to how, you know, Terrans, if they want to add more factories, they'll skip a couple of tank productions and just queue up vultures.
Right.
The Zealots here kind of fill the same role. And plus, like, you want to start building Zealots around the time where Terran might be going out on the map, because really, again, the Zealot is the unit that allows you to take engagements. Like, if you don't have enough Zealots, your Dragoons are just going to absolutely melt, right? But building them allows you to also get your other tech up. You get your Arbiters up, and then you also start getting your upgrades like we're discussing. You know, there's a lot of gas. And Dragoons take gas to build, right? So to actually get those out, you need to be focusing on some mineral-only units, which are the Zealots.
Yeah, right.
Also, Dragoons counter every unit of Terran in the early game.
Yeah.
Zealots don't do anything. You don't have speed. So Dragoons, especially with range, you know, you start just killing Marines for free. Kill Vultures for free if they're ever at any point away from the tanks. So I agree with everything Gypsy said, but I want to just talk about... Remember those Zealots that went by? Remember how Gypsy said it did nothing? So this is pretty much... Gypsy's build was not affected.
Right.
Rain went for 12 Nexus. What do the supplies say? I'm curious. What do they say?
Is that a 1-8? 187?
Is that almost max? What's the game timer say? 10:48.
Yeah.
And we're 10 seconds away from stasis on Arbiter.
Yeah.
This is why when you see Flash play versus 12 Nexus, he's pulling Marines every single time, because like really all I can say that Gypsy did wrong here is he didn't take his third base fast enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, my third was definitely late, and also you notice like I went that 3 factories, but it was inconsequential. And again, bringing that back to, there's a lot of under the hood that happens in terms of how you adjust your build orders.
Right.
Here, Rain had absolute complete confidence in what I was doing.
Yeah.
And, you know, admittedly, like, you know, I remember I was obviously nervous, you know, like, damn, I'm playing Rain, I want to play well. Yeah. So I played a bit too safe.
Yeah.
And, you know, those small things, like Rain, okay, he knows he can take this third. He knows he can take this fourth on time. And it can just compound, like, on so many levels that exactly what you see here, like, he's basically maxed with the stasis at almost 11 minutes. Right. And what do I have? Like, I'm barely over 100 supply. I mean, it's pathetic, you know? But it's just, again, it just shows, like, how important, and you know, just how much the sort of underlying interactions can dictate the game, right?
Right. Yeah.
And the build order, how much the builds really matter.
Yeah, and I think that these are the things that's like every player in all matchups needs to be able to read, right? You get the vision, you get the scout off, you see what you're going up against, and Rain knows these like to the dot. You know what I mean? Like he knows these small things. Like he's just moving out right now because like he saw your build, right? He knows that, you know, maybe it wasn't the most efficient. I think he saw exactly when your third base was like, you know, building and all that stuff. So because he knows all that stuff, like he's just moving out. He's gonna roll out. He's probably gonna attack. I mean, his like his placement, his macro, everything is just kicking in. He's almost maxed out, less than 11 minutes. And one thing I also want to kind of like point out here is if you go to Rain's main base. And I know so many people struggle with this, and I know this sounds so rudimentary, but look how pretty his base looks. You know what I mean? Can we just take like a minute to like appreciate the Ire like architecture here? I mean, like, I think a lot of times what makes a good macro Protoss or macro anything is like when you organize your gateways or your factories or your barracks or whatever, if it's like nice and clean, you have like a nice rhythm to which you can kind of macro your gateways, you know? And it's easy for you, like let's say Rain wants to say, okay, I need to build 4 more gateways, right? So like he can easily build it in so many different places because his architecture is just so beautiful, you know what I mean? So I would say for every Protoss out there that's like trying to learn this matchup, PvZ, PvT, just go on single player and like practice just mentally mapping out where you're gonna put your gateways, because you see in the main base, like, all this tech is at the back. You know what I mean? Sometimes I see people, like, you know, they built their cybernetics core, like, randomly, and then all of a sudden, like, their base gets all, you know, messed up and stuff. And one thing I also want to add, like, and I know I'm talking a lot here, but look at the tech buildings at the top of Rain's base. Those are intentionally placed so that's walled off in such a way that vultures cannot run around through a drop or, you know, if they sneak by. These are all intentionally placed that, you know, he can block those off so easily, right? I know there's like a small gap, like, you know, by the gas, but for the most part, you can't go all the way in the back. So I would kind of encourage all the Protoss to just go on single player and just try out this build order. Like, try to figure out where your gates are. Like, try to clog the backside so that if they drop off vultures, they can't, you know, they can't just walk in there.
Especially with Protoss, like, you know, it's not like Terran where Terran you can build any. Well, okay, first of all, Zerg you don't really have that problem. Okay, you just pop your factories down, and you don't have that many production buildings. You know, sometimes, you know, in ZVZ there's some SimCity stuff. And but anyway, not talking about that. But it's not like Terran where you can just put your your buildings down anywhere you want. You kind of really, as Protoss, to map it out beforehand, because pylon positioning and gateway positioning is really much harder. But if you can have this nice layout, like Jaeyun's saying, like, it makes macroing so much easier. It makes hitting your build so much easier too, because even the couple seconds you think, like, you know, while you're playing the game, and you think like 5 seconds, like, okay, where do I want this gateway? And like
Right.
that already is cutting into the precision of your build, you know, like.
Right.
But if you already know, if you've practiced, like, okay, this building goes here, this building goes here, everything starts flowing really easily in terms of your build order. And again, if you just have one screen to look at when you macro, and you don't have to like drag your mouse across to like scroll your screen to other gateways. You just, and it just makes it so much easier, and you start playing so much better.
Yeah, and then you get like dragoons stuck between like other gateways, and you have to kill the gateway. Like imagine, imagine like what that does to like your mental game. You know what I mean? Like it just frustrates you. Like, you know, let's say you're fighting against vultures or mutas or something. Like you want to be organized in your main base, and this requires no amounts of like, you know, skill. Like you could just go on single player and just figure this out. Like you
I mean, you have to study though. You know, you can't just the thing it requires is intentional studying.
Yeah.
Like you have to go learn this. You cannot learn this while playing. You just can't.
Right.
You can't queue ladder and learn how to place your buildings. Like that's one thing that you know, StarCraft, like it's a lot like chess, right? You can't just play the game. You have to study it. And part of studying it is not just build orders and like generally what you should do, but also where are you placing your buildings, right? So Jaeyun, I totally agree with you. It's like such an overlooked thing.
Yeah.
But it's really so important to just have like a basic layout. And there's some basic layouts that you can use anywhere that you have to learn. Like for example, I know TT1, he uses this he has like a 7 gateway layout with like 2 pylons, one on each side. Like it's very specific.
Right. He makes like this little triangle.
Yeah. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But there's definitely some things that you can transpose from map to map.
Yeah.
Kind of like also Terrans have this. Like for example, if you just have one side of just your add-ons, and then anyway, there's stuff that you don't have to always learn it specifically for one map.
Yeah.
You can kind of learn some basic layouts and kind of transpose them from map to map. But again, like we're spending so much time on this, but it just, I think it's reflective of how important it is. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, all right, let's just.
One last thing with that. So I can tell you from Terran's. Well, when I play Terran, when my base is all jacked up, what happens to me is I go through all the factories on my current screen, and then I forget that there are factories on another screen. So they end up not macroing.
Yeah.
But one thing that is important, another thing that's important about putting them all together is that, let's say you do have to scroll, right? So let's say it's an additional 2 seconds or something.
Right.
There's points in the game where I'm like, okay, I have to macro now, but I have to get back to my units because there's a fight happening or something.
Yep.
If you're shaving off seconds here, potentially your vessel's not getting stasis, right?
Right.
So the more you can optimize it, the more things you can do. You know, you're not going to get stasis maybe. So it's important also just to get back to your army, because the whole game can change if you're not looking and a stasis goes down.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so let's, I mean, there's not much more to this replay. I mean, this is really just kind of to show, like, this is what Protoss can do if you know, if you, like, are very disciplined with, you know, making all your probes and your build orders correct and stuff like that. Obviously, this is a little bit, you know, a little bit of an outlier, so if some of you Protoss out there want to just gag your 1,300 Terran friends with the 12 Nexus, this is what can happen.
Well, yeah, I mean, in terms of the supplies, it's an outlier, but if we think about what did Dewalt do last game? He sat in his base, he built probes, and he built dragoons. What did Rain do this game? He sat in his base, he built dragoons, and he built arbiters. That's what you should do as Protoss. You just build dragoons. They count. I'm telling you, counter every single unit from Terran up until Terran starts getting critical mass. And I mean, like this is just a domination. There's nothing to say.
Yeah, this Terran got dominated, dude. Like, who is this guy?
Yeah, that guy sucks. What the hell?
No,
but
yeah,
you can do something similar to this. What we're seeing here. There's a video that Harangi made where he goes just standard play. He goes like 21 Nexus into you know, robotics, and he takes a third base off of like 5 Dragoons, and he slowly builds up his gateway count.
Yeah.
And he's also maxing at 11 minutes. He doesn't have his Arbiter with stasis, but he has an Arbiter, and he just charges at Terran at like 11:15. And I mean, we saw the supply from Gypsy. It was what, like 120 or so. Even if Gypsy had played perfect here, his supply is maybe maximum 140.
Yeah.
Like, you can just steamroll.
Yeah.
Lots of Terrans because they're flat out not going to have as many units as you.
Yeah.
I mean, I send it to a few of my friends, like, you should do this build, because I know from Terran's perspective, you're going to out macro them.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. All right. Well, this was kind of, again, this is just kind of showing, hey, like, this is what Protoss can do. This is what, this is how you can kind of exploit some of these dirty Terran friends that you have there. But, yeah, that was a good example. So we did see, oops, I got disconnected. We saw a 2-base Arbiter from Dewalt, excellently played against a pro gamer Light. He was able to even beat him. Then we also saw this game by Raid. I mean, I think it was still like a 2-base Arbiter type build, but he just had all that extra money, so he got a faster third base out, to be honest. I think that's kind of what happened. So, all right, next we're going to go into a viewer-submitted replay. We only have one, so it's not going to be too much. Then we'll kind of go ahead and talk about some, you know, other topics for the remainder of the time. So we'll get in here. Let me read the question just so we have some context. And this one is from Joel Chan 86. He is about a 1250 Protoss. Then he asks, or he comments, this is pretty representative of my PvT struggles at the moment. If we're both good enough to get to the late game, I typically die after a few pushes. Feel like I don't have a good sense of what to do after I've maxed. I know I need to take a ton of bases, but don't have good sense of the right timing. I don't know how to do that while my opponent is pushing. Do I need to have a lot more production expansions before the big 2-1 or 200-200 push? And how to do that safely. Also, how bad are my engagements holding me back right now? Often lose arbiters for free, don't move my whole army at the same time. As a lower level player, trying to focus more on macro, but maybe it's not good enough to overcome my poor micro. Trying to decide how much value I'll get by practicing PvT engagements versus just focusing on macro. Okay, so we have a lot of questions here. I mean, we'll just kind of like keep that in mind as we watch the replay, just so we have some context as we watch. But it seems like, you know, it's really just late game struggles of like what to do with your money, how do you get map control, army control, and all that stuff. So let's go ahead and maybe just fast forward until we start seeing any, I don't know, kind of blaring weaknesses here. So what do you guys... oh yeah, go ahead.
No, the only thing I was going to say is more often than not, like, what's holding you back is probably your macro, your micro, not your engagements. Because for the most part, if you, as a lower level player, if you can focus on your macro and just produce more stuff, even if your micro and your engagements are kind of and you lose a lot of units that maybe you might not lose had you spend more time like microing or something, that's not going to matter when you're just going to have more stuff than the other person.
Right.
So I'm just going to assume that that's I mean, we'll get to see here what goes on, right? But for the most part, I would say like it's safe to say that you should be focusing on just making stuff. You know?
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so let's see here. I mean, it looks pretty standard so far. 1 gate cyber core, scouting, no zealot. Probably going to see a Dragoon range come down really fast. I mean, early game PvT is not very, you know, eventful unless you go for like a zealot harass. I actually think a zealot harass at a lower level is like almost 100% of the time worth it. like what do you guys think? It's like, I feel like I could just rally a zealot and not even micro it and just send it to like a 1300 Terran base and still get value out of it. Like whether you actually do, well, unless there's a wall, I guess, but I don't know. What do you guys think about that in general?
Okay, I'm on the fence about it because we're seeing a wall here, which means it would have done nothing, but this could be an abnormal game. But in my experience, at low level players, even higher lower level players that stream and stuff, for example, they watch stuff happen too much.
Yeah.
So like you send the Zealot out and it's dealing damage, but what's happening back in your main?
Yeah.
Are you building pylons? Are you building probes? The Zealot might get, let's say he kills all the Marines, which is probably going to be like 2 or 3.
Right.
But if you're missing probes the entire time,
yeah.
Now Terran has traded 3 Marines for X amount of probes, or let's say you miss an upgrade. So I can see it being good, but I can also see it kind of hurting you in the end.
Can we pause?
Yeah.
I would just suggest building goons, but
right. Okay.
Okay. So here, like so this build is looking really good so far, right?
Yeah.
But you have to think about it. This the one tip I would give at this point is just you want to keep your first 1 or 2 goons like back just to deny scouting from the Terran.
Right.
But after that, moving out, just as I say, let's pause this. JC86 is doing exactly what I'm about to say. Mm-hmm. But once you've denied the Terran scout, then you want to move your goons up to just feel the Terran out, because most of the time that's how you're going to get most of your scouting done in the early game in this game. Yeah. It's not going to be through your observer, but it's going to be through your goons kind of just safely poking the Terran, because again, you have to remember your goons outrun every other unit. Yeah. They also outrange every other Terran unit except the tank, but like again, they outrun the tank. Right. So you have to use that to your advantage to scout and feel out the Terran, right? And this is exactly what the Protoss player is about to do. Mm-hmm. Go to the Terran's natural, just confirm that there's a command center going down. Really, is your primary objective. And once you know that it's there, and then you can bring your goons back, and that's probably a good thing, like a good habit to develop to eventually get your goons back into your base, because then eventually you'll be running into dropships and whatever. Right. But yeah, I definitely, I was gonna say like the goons aren't moving out, but they're definitely moving out at this point. So this is good. And so far, like the build just seems really good.
Build's solid.
Yeah, very solid actually.
Yeah, he hit everything. I think it was like a 430 robotics, so that's exactly what you want. If I was playing Protoss here, I would probably poke in a little bit farther, just because I want to see, is it siege mode? Or are these units on the low ground? If you're seeing like tanks on the low ground with Marines sitting in front of them and none of them are sieged, most of the times that means that they're probably going to do some kind of tank push. Right. Whereas we see here, like these tanks are just sitting there, and one's on the high ground. That means that they're more defensive. But you can also, if you do poke in at this point, sometimes Terran does have mines set up. I mean, it's unlikely, but you are risking running in here to die to mines. Right. So.
But see where this Marine is here, just on the outskirts? And if we look at what the Terran has, he has 2 tanks right now, and the third one is almost done. Yeah. So realistically, in another game, what could have happened here is that the Terran not only it wasn't just this one Marine out here, but it was like 5 Marines and 2 tanks. And then suddenly these 3 goons are dead, right? Yeah. So again, going back to what I was saying earlier, maybe the goon move out could have been a bit earlier than now. They're a bit late to the Terran natural, and like the Terran, he already has his natural down, and we haven't seen it. And he had like Nyoken was saying, he has siege and everything. This is all things that you should be seeing right away, right? Yeah. So that's a small improvement, but I think that's more of a, once you get to like higher level and you really need to like optimize your builds better. Right. So I don't think it's a big deal here, but just to be aware of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but in general, this is pretty much exactly what you should do. 2-gate with observatory, and then also we even have SimCity at our NAT, which is good.
I mean, everything here looks really good. I mean, 2-gate goons. Okay, we're poking in here a little bit ambitious, but okay, let's get back up. Okay, that's fine. Like got the scout off. I mean, lost a goon. That's okay. Looks like Gypsy's gonna go BRB for a little bit, but I like what we're seeing here. I mean, it's always good if you can see any sort of damage that you can, but yeah, you don't want to be losing the goons. So one thing I would kind of suggest here is like,
pause.
Yes. Go ahead.
You can say your suggestion.
Oh no, yeah, I was just gonna say, like, I think it's just like when you poke in with the goons like this late into the game, it's really just to see like if the Terran actually expanded, Like I think it's also good to maybe like get like a miner contained outside of the Terran's base, just so that like they don't sneak a few vultures by it. So like you don't want to be in range of the tanks, of course, but like as long as you kind of have like a spread of goons, like making sure the vultures aren't going up like the top path up here and then they just suddenly show up at your base. But yeah, I mean I wouldn't get too ambitious, but yeah.
Yeah, so that poke is pretty much what I was saying, but as soon as we saw siege, we need to turn around because it's going to be more than one tank. Of course, it's probably going to be 2 or 3. But I agree, just sit like 4 Dragoons.
Yeah.
4's good because you start 2-shotting every unit at minimum.
Mm-hmm.
You'll be 1-shotting Marines. But can we rewind to 6 minutes because that's when we started moving in? And this kind of goes back to what I was talking about with the Zealot, where we're watching the map. This is... Okay, so, well, this is fine because we're already across the map. Now, I've got the main nexus clicked and I'm watching the natural nexus, okay? I'm not watching anything to do with the Dragoons. I can tell that they're moving out on the map. So I have the main nexus selected, so I see a pros building. But what's happening at the nat? I know we're moving Dragoons, right?
Yeah.
This is what I'm talking about. No nexus. That we missed a probe cycle there. That's, I think they're 12 seconds. Yep. Still no probe production.
Yep.
Every 12 seconds, so we start at like 6:10, right?
Yep.
Okay, so now we're about to miss 2 more probes. Yep. So we've missed 3 probes so far because we poked in with these Dragoons.
Yep.
Okay, now we started. So we missed about 3.5 probes here.
Yep.
Simply because we moved our Dragoons into our base. And look at our money also.
Yeah.
What has happened?
Right.
We're at 1,000 minerals almost. This is kind of why I don't really agree with attacking so much. Your Protoss, you have units that are strong versus every single unit Terran has in the early game until critical mass happens.
Right.
Really just focus on your build order, which is why single player is so good. Because if you go into single player, or you can even go into what I do sometimes if I want to save a game, is go into multiplayer, put a computer in, and during the countdown remove the computer. Then the game will start with nothing in it. The victory screen will pull up, but you just hit continue playing. Now you're playing against nothing. Yeah. And if you just went in here and you built a nexus while you were doing this attack and were building probes, your nexus would be like 20% done by now.
Right. So I think like that's just like we just saw here when we went back to that 5:45 to 6 minutes. Like I had my camera just on the 2 nexuses, and I think that's like a really good point to emphasize because. Let's suppose that the Dragoons are moving in there. Like in order for this to be actually worth it, like you actually need to be doing damage to Terran in such a way that makes up for the fact that you're not making these 3 what is it, 3 probes or like 3 probes per nexus, right? Because I think we missed about 40 seconds of production in the probe, right? So as we're going in here, suppose we pause, let's say we even kill the tank, right? And then you just run away and you don't lose any goons, right? Like you have to ask yourself, like, was that actually worth it? Because for a pro gamer that might be worth it, right? Because the pro gamer is back at home, he's macroing, he's expanding, he's making the probes and stuff. But at a lower level, even if you kill the tank, if you miss 3 cycles of probes on 2 nexuses and then you also delay your 3rd base, then sometimes what you think is an advantage actually isn't an advantage because back at home, you're not actually macroing or doing anything, right? So I think that was a really good point that you brought up there, Nyoken, because here's a classic example of like us thinking, oh, we have to go in, we have to go do something, but we don't realize the damage we do to ourselves by not macroing back at home. So, I mean, I think in general, that this move in here, I mean, we lost a couple of goons, but I think the real damage was not doing anything back at home, right?
Yeah, we didn't do anything while this was happening. Of course, there is an SCV pull. Terran potentially is also messing up. Like it's not.
Yeah.
It's not you only lost and Terran didn't lose anything, but we did lose Dragoon here. So now now it's even snowballing a little bit. But yeah, just pointing out that we have messed up. A bit.
Right, in ways that in the moment they probably can't see, right? So I think from here, maybe even this fight kind of psychologically, took JC86 out of the game, right? Like maybe he's not sure of what to do. So it looks like we are seeing 4 gateways before the third base coming down. So I feel like in general, you know, like we would like to be seeing an expansion at this point, right? Especially against this.
This is good, I think.
Oh, is it?
This
Okay. Okay.
I think on average, like if you're just learning the game, you know, you're not playing at the top level. Just going 4 gateways is the safest way.
Right.
You know, 3 gates, but I don't think that's a real deal breaker. You can't really. All we saw there was, okay, the eBay and the turret. Like, you know, if you're higher level, like you understand, okay, that's a mineral sink. Like they probably don't have 4 factories down already. Like there's no way.
Yeah.
But you know, for us, like we don't really know that, so we don't really know what's behind the tanks. It might be 4 factories.
Sure.
So I would say that playing like this is perfectly acceptable.
Fine.
But right now, like in your head, unless you're trying to go up to arbiters, which might be the case because here we're getting a citadel, you really should be thinking about taking your third base.
Yeah.
That's your #1 objective. And again, like we were saying before, these Dragoons don't need to be out on the map. Let's say a dropship, like right now is prime dropship time.
Right.
Drop flies in, we're dead.
Yeah.
We really want our Dragoons to be back, defending our natural choke, defending maybe the possible drops, and then looking to secure the mineral only third.
Right.
That's really what we want to be doing with our Dragoons right now.
Yeah. And so, like, I think now that we have the observer in the base, I think this is a critical point for Protoss, because I'm just gonna sit here and pause, because the #1 thing you need to confirm. I guess he didn't really see the CC, but with this first observer coming out here, you need to check: is this a 2-base push or a 3-base Terran? Right? Like that's just like the 2 pathways that you need to confirm, because if the Terran had at least 4 factories or even 4, 5, 6 factories at this point, then like you really need to just not die, right? Because if you can bash that push in, a lot of times you'll be in a really great position to win the game, right? But at this point, we see 2 factories. I mean, I guess if he scrolls over a little bit to the right, we'll see the command center. We want to kind of interpret that, like, I understand what you're saying with the 4 gateways. That's totally fine, especially before you know that your opponent is actually expanding. But at this point, I think the response is, okay, the Terran player can't push me right now, right? Like you guys said, the Dragoon counters just about everything that the Terran has. Now is a good time to go ahead and expand.
Yeah, so something I told an EG player a long time ago was his issue was he was building gateways and units constantly all game at moments where Terran really couldn't do anything. So he would build all these Dragoons, but then he wouldn't use them. And meanwhile, Terran's like taking bases. And really, at points in the game when Terran can't attack you, especially when it's in the early game like it is right now, you just take bases.
Yeah.
You just get your econ really strong. So when Terran moves out, you can just have the gateway production to back it up. If you're building like pure goons here, what Terran's going to do is they're going to float these buildings like we're seeing, put them in good SimCity positions, spam turrets, spam mines, spam tanks, and the goons that you built up the whole game are just not going to be able to kill them. So unless you were like all-inning with 8 gate already and speed shuttle or something, you're building all these units for nothing, and meanwhile Terran's scaling up exponentially faster than you are. So yeah, this
right now, like I'm just getting mixed signals, right, from what the Protoss wants to do. Because really, this could have been like, you know, maybe our Protoss player here actually knew that this, you know, he saw the 3rd command, so he understands, okay, this is a 3-base play, and he's gearing up to like try and bust that 3rd base, which is, you know, it's totally a valid way of playing. Like, but we see that's pretty indicative here. From the fact that he's building zealots, he's getting zealot leg speed. He added a 5th gateway. But okay, if you're gonna do that, why are we taking this 3rd nexus? Right? Yeah. If you want to do that, commit to it. Put down a couple more gateways, but I feel like maybe in this case that was what was going through his head. And to be completely fair, that's a totally valid way of playing. Now, at the highest level, this usually won't work. But to understand that it has to fail, and it's not going to fail at this level. And so I think it's a totally valid way of playing. But again, we have to understand what are our priorities here. Now, ideally, you would want to be taking your 3rd base and then taking your 4th base. That's sort of the standard way of playing, though.
Yeah, exactly. I like what you said there because, you know, I think it does kind of look like, you know, JC86 here wants to go in for a bust, and I think that's okay, right? Because sometimes when the Terran is taking a 3 base, you know, you can just mass up a whole bunch of goons and zealots, but like you said, I think it's important to just be like very assertive about that. Like, you know, I would personally think that if you go for like this 2 base push, you should, you know, put all your eggs in that basket, because whenever you kind of go for a push like this where you're you know, sacrificing so much in order to like really kill this guy, like if this push fails, like especially at this point in the game where we just got our 3rd up, we don't have our 4th out, this is going to be very bad, like a huge hole to play from. So I would say also just maybe at this time, I think maybe, you know, if I were to guess what he was thinking, maybe he wasn't aware, maybe he's just building up forces to kind of you know, defend against the push that might be coming. But I feel like in general, like, you know, if they are going for that 3rd base and they don't have 4, 5, 6 factories by the time your observer gets there, then you're probably safe from a push until after 12 minutes, right?
But look, we just have to pause the game or something here, and or even at any point in the past minute or two.
Yeah.
And when we look at the game state, we look at what we're doing as the Protoss player.
Yeah.
Look at all these zealots. What are they doing? You know, they're, you know, we have like what, 12, you know, maybe around 12 zealots here, another 4 zealots there, 2 zealots here. That's, you know, like 18 zealots or something.
Right.
This 4th nexus could have been done by now, and then we could have had, you know, 2, 3 more gateways, a bunch more probes, and you know, by the time the Terran pushes out, we would have this many units anyway.
Yeah.
But with significantly better infrastructure, right? So when you're reviewing your own replays, try and do this a bit. You know, pause the game at some point and just, okay, what are my units doing? What's my objective here? Did we even confirm? You know, is the Terran taking a 4th base? Is the Terran set up at his 3rd base?
Right.
Now, of course, I understand, like, you know, when you're a lower level player, it's hard to like juggle all of these things.
Sure. Yeah.
But when you're watching your own play and when you're thinking about what am I supposed to be doing here,
right.
You know, like for example, is my 3rd safe? Like if vultures come in from the complete right side, and start harassing my 3rd, am I safe? Like, what are my goons doing right now? Nothing, not much really. Right. So they could actually be in a better position by just moving them down to protect this 3rd, to protect this 4th.
Right.
To, you know, you want everything to be doing something. You want everything to be geared towards something, right?
Yeah.
And that's what you have to do when you watch your own replays, is really figure out like what's going on with my build, what's going on with everything that I'm doing, is it serving a purpose? But that being said, like I think our Protoss player is playing, you know, really well. Like this is good macro.
No, yeah, he's got 153 supply. Like I think he's overall, like I think the supply is pretty good. He's expanding. I think everything's in the right direction. We do see Arbiter on the way. But like to your point, it's really important. I think one good like practice to have as a Protoss player in general. So we'll just play this at a fast. But I think it's always good to like know exactly where all of your units are and that you can bind them correctly. Like for example, if you're sitting outside their base and you're ready to bum rush them when they come out, it's good to have like a semicircle right around their base instead of like in this one giant glob. You know what I mean? So that right when they come out, you can kind of just go 1A, 2A, 3A, 4A, right? But here we kind of see the army kind of, you know, kind of sitting around, like, you know, maybe you should be more in like a defensive stance, like you were saying, like get some Dragoon spread and stuff like that. And I think also one kind of additional point that I want to add is I think a lot of lower level Protoss also struggle with vision too, right? Like you said, I think part of you know, his question was like, you know, I don't know what to do, and I think a lot of that is because you don't know what the Terran is doing as well, right? Like we don't even know if there's like a 4th base. So I think even just making like for every lower level player, just make like 5 observers, you know, 10 observers. Okay, not 10, but like make observers seriously. And
definitely
just, like,
more than 2. Right now we only have 2 observers.
Dude, just make 5, man. Like seriously, just like put 1 at their 4th base. I mean, I'm not saying this is the right way to play. I'm just saying like I'm just exaggerating so that you have more vision than less vision. So I think that really gives a lot of perspective in terms of like, you know, what to exactly, you know, how to like devise your long-term strategy as well. So I think at this point we're kind of just waiting for a Terran to come out, right? Like because we don't have a recall, I think the Protoss should really just be gearing up to like bash the Terran in and take more bases. You don't really want to go for the throat at this point because Terran's really in a defensive stance. So I don't know. What would you guys say is the long-term direction for Protoss right now?
You gotta wait for Terran to come out because you can't run into them now. It's too late into the game.
Yeah.
To run into them. If you're gonna run in somewhere, I would. Well, no. I think you just wait. You just set up in a circle, like you said, and wait for them to come out. You see it with the observer.
Yeah.
And if they ever try to come out through the low bridges, through the double bridges instead of the high platform, you jump on them because they're going to be funneling out 1 or 2 units at a time.
Yeah.
If any Terran does that, you should just immediately attack them as soon as you see it. They're going to not have... Even if all you do is kill like vultures and then back off, that's good for you because it's buying you time to get up extra gateways and stuff like that.
Right.
But yeah, we should just be waiting at this point. And then every second we're waiting gives us more energy for stasis.
Right,
so this Arbiter, for example, has 1 stasis. It's 100 more energy. That means we've got to wait like 2 minutes or 2.5 minutes to get the extra 100. Well, if we jump on their army immediately and then they get scared and wait two minutes, then we're gonna have double state. So, yeah, so I think here too, I mean, just kind of going back to like his question, like especially when you're maxed out like this and you got arbiters and you're just waiting for the Terran, this is a great time. Like, just go take more bases. Go take like, you know, this mineral only, go take the natural here. Hell, just even send a probe to like the 3 o'clock or even top right, just for the heck of it. Like, if you have the time and you have the money, I would just take bases, you know, start setting up a whole bunch of gateways at bottom right. It looks like that's what he's doing. I would say the biggest thing here is army movement and also the vision, because we have no idea if the Terran's going to come out from the top side. Like, always have your army in a semicircle right outside of their base, right? So that right when they come out, you just go boom, 1A, 2A, 3A, 4A, 5A, and boom, Terran just dies, right? Because if it's all clumped up like this, I feel like, you know, the Protoss army is going to get all funneled. I think we're kind of moving up here, and again, I think, you know, the pressure is more on the Terran than the Protoss, so I really don't like this attack here. Yeah, at this point,
there's no real reason to attack here.
Well, right, it's good. We're backing off. Like, Terran at this point might even have 3-2, so we can't attack here. And then we're attacking into tanks, but we're attacking into mines, and then there's depots and all this stuff set up. I've had games where the barracks is floating and it soaks up like 800 hits or 800 damage worth of hits. That's like 40 shots. Like, it's unreal how much damage the buildings end up taking. So this is kind of what I'm talking about. This move out. Yeah. Now, this is not a lot of tanks moving out. Okay, see, at this point, when you see these units moving out,
go boom, 1A, 2A, 3A.
All of these on the low ground are out of position. Let's say he immediately sieges up. He's probably going to have his entire tank line in one group.
Yeah.
So look at what's going to siege. These 3 that are out are going to get sieged up. Then there's like 10 in the back that are going to get sieged up. And most of them aren't even going to be in range of shooting any of your stuff. So you just pick off these units and back off.
Yeah, this is the prime. Like, I think, you know, I could see why, you know, JC86 kind of asked this question of like, hey, I don't really know what to do in a late game, but I think at this point, sometimes like the fear of the unknown kind of gets you, where like we're 16 minutes in the game, the Terran's just pushing out, right? Like, I think it's more the Terran's game to, you know, it's more the Terran's has to go out and do something, right? Because if the Protoss just sits there, like, I think the Protoss in general, like, against maybe a lower level Terran that's kind of sitting in with the 16-30 push, if you have 8 bases out on the map, like, you can sit there all day. I mean, like, you don't even need to go, I see a fleet being at the bottom right, you don't need to go carriers. Like, bank up to, like, 20,000 minerals. Like, seriously, I'm like, I think it's just, like, you have to get comfortable in the late game just knowing, okay, I have more money than you, I could trade better than you, I could throw away my entire army and then remax it in the next 1 minute, and I can keep doing that over and over, whereas this Terran is just really stuck on 4 bases, right? So I feel like sometimes, you know, players get this sense of like, oh, I have to be doing something, when the real answer is no, you don't. Like sometimes you can just sit outside, and like you said, you have to jump on this, like especially when they're like moving out of this bridge in this funnel right now. So I mean, let's see if the Protoss actually goes into attack. It looks like we might be losing our window of opportunity here, though.
The other thing is the JC86, like he mentioned, right, like something about taking fights better.
Yeah.
And this goes back to what we actually were talking about in the previous episode last week. Is vision is just so important in this matchup, especially specifically for engages in the late game. Right. The Terran, he's always constantly trying to scan ahead of his army to try and set up, you know, as well as he can. Because if the Protoss just comes in and you're not prepared, you just lose. But conversely, also the Protoss really needs to have observers out and vision to know exactly where the Terran is and when they're unsieged. And again, this goes back to just what we were talking about. Like, we really want to be getting way more observers than right now. Because here, like, we really only saw the Terran push out from the double bridges. We didn't see anything else about his position.
Right.
And again, we don't really know what's going on top right. We don't really know what's going on in this game. Mostly because we're just not scouting.
Right.
So really, in the earlier game, like, the observers were a problem, but it's also now that it's showing that really, especially if you start getting that feeling of, I'm not too sure what I'm doing, I'm not too sure what's happening.
Right.
If you were to map hack, like, it would be so much more obvious what you should be doing, because you'd see, like, okay, the Terran does, you know, it'd be easier to gauge what's going on. But in this case, like, we just have absolutely no vision, and that's really, like, a big detriment to just how we're approaching and playing this game, right? Like, we just don't know what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, like, I think one thing to, like, recognize, and, you know, I know this very well playing Zerg, you know, I know Nyoken knows this very well playing, you know, his style of Terran too, but sometimes you have to think about the game of Starcraft in terms of win conditions rather than bashing your opponent down, like, you know, like you kill their army, you kill their base, you force them to GG out, right? Like, but you realize, like, as you start to get to a point, like, what I love about pro gamers is that they play off win conditions, right? It's like, you know, you don't have to kill the opponent to win the game. Like, you can beat your opponent by securing enough bases in such a way that you cut off all their opportunities to win, right? Like, there's a lot of other things that you can do, and I think when you take off the vision for Terran and only look at Protoss, we have, like you said, Gypsy, we have no idea what's going on in the top right. Like, for all I know, like, you know, let's say, you know, your opponent just visions you right now, and, like, Terran has, like, 8 bases, on, like, all on the top half of the map, right? And then you feel helpless, right? But if you had an observer out there and you kind of knew, like, oh, he's only on 4 bases, right? Like, as long as I have more bases and I don't die to his push, then I should win the game. I don't even need to attack him, right? But I could see, like, if you don't have that vision, you don't know he doesn't have top right, you don't know he doesn't have the natural, you don't know he doesn't have that mineral only, you start to feel a little bit lost, right? So I think really, you know, it does come down to, like, taking the observers, you know, making the observers, putting them in position, putting them at all the expansions, knowing exactly when the Terran's coming out. That gives you a sense of peace, you know, just kind of, like, mentally, and allows you to make better decisions in general too.
I mean, we just avoid the situation where the Terran army pops out of nowhere and it's killing our base, right? Right,
yeah. Because, positioning is everything in both sides of the matchup, right? For Terran and for Protoss, right? So we do see a cool counterattack. He maxed out really quick, so, like, his macro looks really, really strong here, actually. But it's just that, like, you know, it does seem like the direction is a little bit, like, lacking here. So it looks like we're going to push in here. Oh, I don't know if that's the best angle, though.
If you attack from the platform here, where all your units can get down, you would bust through here, because Terran's maxed and more than half of his armies at top, bottom right. But instead, we have these fat dragoons going in single file.
This engaging there is not the best idea. And usually, just as, like, a small tip too, like, if you're engaging through this bridge, you definitely want to just send the Zealots first. And usually, if you have a big army, you're trying to get through this, command them first. And like, because you don't want to like a fat Dragoon just like on attack command and like blocking everybody back behind. So like, if you are moving past the bridge, like you want to command them first and then attack. But in general, I would not recommend, you know, moving across that.
Can we just like pause this for a second though? So this is a viewer submitted 1200 game, correct?
Yeah.
Now, I don't know about you guys' opinion, but we have a 1200 Terran with 5 base versus a Protoss with 5 base. We have Terran counterattacking, doesn't even send his whole army to bottom right, has split off part of his army to kill the 4th base.
Right.
Like, this is not stuff...
Yeah, I don't know if this Terran is for their 1200.
Yeah, but what I'm saying, though, is that this, like, low-level players consider themselves bad because of whatever their rating is, but really, like, what I'm looking at here isn't even bad. Like, Terran's doing exactly what you're supposed to do. He's got 3-2, he's got 5 base, he split off his army to kill the bases that are mining from Protoss.
Yeah.
Like, this is exactly what you're supposed... This is what you see at higher level games.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Protoss has a good army, too. It's just that now he's lost so much stuff. Like, neither player here is playing bad. I just want to point that out. That this is not what I was expecting to see out of 1200 play.
Yeah, same here. I'm a little surprised this is 1200 too. Just like the macro is good. I feel like you know, the Terran. I mean, obviously things are not like as optimized, but like, you know, the general strategic like sense is there, and that's what's kind of like, you know, really good about both these players.
It's really good. I've been watching this whole game just from the Protoss's perspective, and it's, you know, if there's one thing I have to say is it's really hard for me to tell what's going on in this game because the vision is so restricted.
Right, yeah.
So I really just, you know, it's as soon as I turn on the vision for the Terran player, I kind of completely understand what's going on, obviously.
Right.
But what I'm saying is it shouldn't be what I'm experiencing should not be that drastic.
Yeah.
You should know where you're at. You should know if Terran has a mid-left or maybe something top right. That's like, you know, the Terran has a mineral only top right.
Right.
We have to be aware of all this.
Yeah.
So again, I think the biggest recurring theme here. Now we can go back to the beginning of the game where, you know, maybe JC86's build wasn't the most optimal. Maybe we got those zealots not at the best time.
Yeah.
You know, there's all these small things, but I think the real striking problem with our gameplay here really is just the vision, the lack of vision.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it contributes to that sense of not knowing how to take engagements, not knowing what I'm supposed to be doing, right?
Right, yeah. Because it's like, to be honest, I wouldn't know either. You know? Like,
exactly.
Like, yeah, I think to your point, you're basically saying, like, yeah, we don't know either. Like, you know, even if you put a pro gamer, like, yeah, they might respond, you know, the most, you know, the highest probability way given the vision. But like, the whole point here is that, like, yeah, like, I don't know what to do without the vision either. So it's like, I think the first step again is just like have the vision first, then you can start to see, okay, now what is my direction, right? Because anyone is going to feel lost without like knowing what your opponent's doing. So
and again, like, just really briefly going back to what I said in the beginning, right? Like, remember that comment I said, you know, it's probably going to be your macro problem here.
Yeah.
I could not be more wrong. I could not have been more wrong about a comment.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, surprisingly, this game, like, it was just really, really high level from both players. You know, like,
it was good.
I honestly did not expect this.
Yeah.
And I can say for sure, the problem is not macro.
Yeah.
And I don't know how. I don't think I've ever said that ever. Mm-hmm. In my experiences of like giving advice to lower level players.
Yeah. But
the problem here 100% is our lack of vision of just general what's going on. Where is the army? These are the two main things you want to really make sure you know what's going on, right?
Yeah.
Like besides scouting for the initial like build order stuff, like okay, is the Terran going 2 base? Is the Terran going 3 base? But beyond that, like what you really want to know is where the Terran's army and where are the Terran's bases, right?
Absolutely.
Those are the two main things you have to always be looking for.
Right. Yeah, and that's how the pros respond. You know, that's exactly what they're doing. They're spending so much time getting the vision so that they can respond. Because if you don't have the vision, then you don't know how to respond. So, all right, really good replay. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Also, on our first attack, like we sent our army in, but we were missing one of the groups. But
I remember that.
But really, the thing that I saw was the zealots went in and died, and then we backed off. And then we decided to go anyways.
Yeah.
And really, once the zealots die, unless you're like busting through and you know for a fact, like for example, let's say you have 20 goons versus 5 tanks that are left over. Well, then you should go for it.
Right.
But like here, like look, if we pause right now, where are the zealots?
They're back there, yeah.
First off, they're there, but even if they're, well, in this scenario, our stasis is good. If the zealots were here this time, I think we could have gone in, but like, let's assume that you're just watching the screen. You don't know about these zealots.
Right.
You're looking at pure goon. There's nothing here that's going to buffer the damage onto the goon, so we're kind of just throwing them away.
Yeah.
So in this scenario, as soon as these zealots insta-melted to the vultures, you should have backed off, because now we're going to lose our entire army, and then Terran's going to counterattack. But other than that, I thought everything else was pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so okay. I mean, this was a really good replay. I think this is, you know, very representative of a lot of like other people. Hold on. A lot of like Protoss and Terrans out there in general. So I feel like yeah, this was good. You know, we have a good lesson on just like vision. You know, kind of moving your army. You know, in like a good way. So I think like, when we looked at the Dewalt game too, you know, we saw that Dewalt was always active with his army. His army was always doing something at some time, even if it wasn't attacking. You know,
okay,
but
well, okay. I agree with that statement, but I really am, like we saw with the Dragoon movement in the beginning, right?
Yeah.
Because of how strong Dragoons are.
Yeah.
I like how Dewalt plays in the early game, where he just puts like 4 to 8 goons just at all his bases. If you want to be busy with your army, as you say, I would like it more that you're just stationing them in defensive spots, instead of like, if we were to play this game out, we moved to like the platform a few times, and then back to the middle, and then the platform back to the middle. But Terran wasn't doing anything. So when I hear moving your army, I don't really like that. But if you're gonna move your army into just defensive spots and just sit there, I do like that.
Right, yeah, I think I was just more alluding to like the having a plan for your army at like, for example, like I'm not necessarily saying like just move them around like randomly, but like for example, you could just station your units outside in like a semicircle to get ready to attack when they come out, right? Like you don't need to be moving them around, but I'm saying like have a purpose for your units even if they're not moving, right? Because like you could still station them. They could be doing nothing for 2 minutes, but they could still be doing what you want them, which is to station, you know, in position out there so that when they move out, or let's say you're just blocking vultures or whatever. But okay, all right, some good talks, good PvT talks. I do want to talk about a few things because I have to go right at about 20 minutes. So I want to go to a quick question that we got in my Discord channel, and then maybe we'll just kind of talk about a couple of other topics after that. So, okay, so Six Aussie, I believe he's a Terran player, but he also wants to know, when you're going for a 3-base Terran push and in TVP, how do you recognize before your push when a Protoss is being greedy and overexpanding? I'm always afraid of a recall that I feel like I don't know how to recognize and punish a greedy Protoss.
I mean, do you want me to answer, Gypsy, or do you want to answer?
No,
we'll get both your takes.
So, as I've been playing more and maxing and macroing better, I really scan just often for the Templar Archive and Stargate timing, because as soon as you know when that happens, it's about a minute for the tribunal to complete. So let's say you scan and you see the Stargate's done, and then you see the tribunal go up.
Yep.
So let's just add a minute. For the Arbiter to build and get recall, it's basically 4 minutes. So we can just round all this to, it's going to be 5 minutes before recall. So let's say you scan Stargate at 8 minutes. It's done. You see the Arbiter Tribunal. Add 5 minutes to 8. We're going to be at 13. That's basically the earliest that Protoss can recall you at. Now, I realize that the number I threw out is going to be kind of at an awkward point because that's when Terran's going to want to start moving out. So let me move it up to, let's say you scan and you see the Stargate finished at 10. Well, now you're going to have this window of opportunity if you're doing the 13-minute 2-1 timing where you don't really have to worry about recall because you're going to hit at 13, but you know it's coming at 15.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I do because I agree that recall is scary, but as soon as you know how long it takes for Protoss to get it, recall all of a sudden is not that scary anymore.
Right.
Because you just are like, okay, I'm going to attack you now, and I know you may not even have stasis, let alone recall. So if we fight right now, that's going to be my best opportunity. But if you sit there and waver, this energy builds up, and then it gets scarier and scarier. And I mean, that's what I look for is Stargate and archive timing.
So just a follow up out of my own curiosity there too. So, I mean, if you're going for a 3-base play, whether or not the Protoss is over expanding or not, like, you know, I don't know that necessarily changes what you're doing. I mean, like, I guess if you're Flash, you know, Flash has like these timings, like, you know, Flash plays with map hack basically. You know, he knows exactly when to move out at all times. But I feel like at a lower level, if you're going 3-base push, whether or not they're making 6 nexuses or whatever, like, you know, I would still stick to the plan, right? Like, I mean, to your point, like, you have to figure out the recall timing, right? But in terms of, like, quote-unquote punishing greed, I think you can punish it just by executing really well at the 12:30 push. Like, what's your take on that?
Yeah, so I kind of agree with that.
Okay.
When I play, there are games where Protoss takes, you know, 5 base. But because of how fast I'm hitting, just because they have the Nexus doesn't mean they're mining it, right?
Yeah.
So in reality, they're spending 400 minerals that may not even come into play for them.
Right.
Now, if you botch your attack, of course, that's not the greatest, but I agree with just sticking to the plan, and I agree with what you said about Flash. Flash knows all these timings.
Yeah. Don't do that. Don't do that.
For example, this 7-fact timing that we're seeing, if you read Foreign Brood War Discord, I don't really even recommend this build because it's relying on you macroing like Flash. It's relying on you to put down mines. And then on top of it, know how to use the mines, like understand the implied damage that it does. So since you're specifically talking about this 3-base timing, there are variations of the 3-base timing that come into play where, like I said, when you scan, if you see the Stargates late, then you have the opportunity to attack faster because you know that Protoss is not going to have stasis.
Stasis.
But because you're attacking so much faster, your tank count's going to be lower.
Right.
And so in this scenario, even though, you know, like that would be optimal if it was Flash controlling, I don't even really recommend that. I don't think you should go for 12:30 timing. I think you should build a few more add-ons and go for a 13:30 timing. Because then you're going to have more tanks. A lot of times, even if you do hit the 12:30 timing, what happens is you're organizing your hotkeys and stuff. And then by the time you actually move out, it's not even 12:30 anymore. So in the end, you've been maxed at 2-1 for a while, and you're banking like 2,000 minerals, but your tank count is still low. So I would say you should go for something like 13:30. Sure, maybe this guy is going to have stasis when he might not have it, but you're going to have 5 or 6 more tanks there. I would go for that build. I wouldn't try and copy his 2-1. And then even if Protoss plays extra greedy, you're going to trade much better because you have the higher tank count. And then you can just, as long as you make a focused attack on a base and you don't like split off like half your army like to the main and then half to like a cross map position, as long as you're continuing the focused push, then you're going to go kill that base. And depending how fast they built it, they may have the Nexus, but it's not even mining. So, I mean, that would be my suggestion.
Okay. Gypsy, do you have any thoughts on that? I don't know if you even remember the question, but just to reiterate just to kind of bring it back. The question's basically, you're going 3-base Terran. How do you recognize, when a Protoss is being greedy and overexpanding? And it looks like he's also scared about recall, so he doesn't know exactly like how to deal with that. So any thoughts?
I think it doesn't matter. You
it doesn't
just
matter.
Do your build.
Yeah.
Those things you really only learn through intuition.
Yeah.
And through like getting really good. Like when you run your vultures around, you see their goon count. When you scan, and like if you have your build order down and you scan and then you compare your production to their production, like this is all stuff that you can only gauge if you're playing at a high level. If not, you should not be worrying about any of that. But
yeah,
I think this goes, the other part of the question with respect to recall goes back to what I was talking about at some point last episode, where as Terran, you really just want to focus on like aiming so that you're recall proof by the time you push out. Because Terran, it's much easier to play TVP out and take the fights knowing that you're not going to get recalled. And focusing on just the fight, it makes the matchup so much easier. If you get recalled and you're not prepared for it, you lose. So
yeah,
just in that respect, even if that takes you even an extra minute, let's say you usually push around 14 minutes, which is good. Let's say it takes you 1 minute to put down all the defense you need, and you push at 15 minutes.
Yeah.
I think that's actually totally worth it, especially if you don't get recalled because of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
Well,
yeah.
See, I do agree, but I mean, it depends on your ranking.
Yes, it depends. But I mean, a minute. Okay, in a real game, okay, if you're pushing at 15 minutes, okay, you're doing something really wrong.
Yeah.
But that's just to illustrate the point that if you're, anything but A rank, even A rank, I think, doesn't really matter. If you're like below A rank, I think that holds.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
If you just hit your build, I mean, for example, like I played BSL, right? I played the same build almost the whole way, right?
Yeah.
So if people watch my stream, they know it's coming. I mean, I'm kind of an example of if you just hit your build.
Yeah. Right.
It can work. Of course, I could have gotten crushed, but I am saying like it's not like I was playing a 3,000 rank player who knows everything about the game. If you just hit your build and you understand the timings a little bit and you're recall proof, like Mihai said, you're good to go. It doesn't really matter like how many bases Protoss takes.
Yeah, and I would also just say like just focus on the push. Like don't let the fact that the Protoss is taking a whole bunch of bases like affects you kind of mentally, because I feel like StarCraft is a huge mental game, and in general, like if you're not confident when you push out, like a 200 Terran with 2-1, like you should be the one with confidence. Like, you know what I mean? Like I get the whole recall thing is kind of scary, but like you really just need to focus on the engagement, the positioning. Like I said, the whole point of the 2-1 push is for you to have one of the strongest possible armies in this entire game to move out and just roll out regardless of number of bases. Sometimes if Protoss overexpands, they might not even be maxed out, or maybe they are maxed out, but they don't have like a whole bunch of gateways to support like reinforcing their units, right? So there is a cost to a Protoss that like getting a little too many bases or being a little too greedy out there too, because something's got to give, right? And in fact, if they make like 7 Nexuses and they don't have the right army to combat you, that's actually a good thing for you, right? Like that makes your battle easier when you do push out. So in many ways, like I would just agree with everything that they said. Just stick to the build. I mean, it's a 3-base build for a reason. It's super strong, and just focus on the execution of it. And the recall thing, that's just something that like you kind of gain over time. So, okay.
Yeah. One last thing. Since I play Terran, it does suck to scan and see they're like on 4 base off to nothing, right? So you're like, well, I'm gonna go timing attack now. But goons are so good, and you are never really sure of the exact goon count. You go and move out, and they have 5 or 6 extra goons than you expected, and then you lost your army.
Yeah,
and then
don't
your
do
whole
that.
build's down the drain. It's so frustrating to do that I kind of just don't even think about it anymore. I'm just like, all right, I'm going to hit my build and we're going to go. And if you just avoid that, you're going to avoid the mentality that Terran versus Protoss is impossible, because I think a lot of Terran players go down that route where they're like, oh, he took an extra base, I gotta go punish it, and then they move out and they lose their whole army, and then they get in this mindset, oh, Terran versus Protoss, you know, Protoss is broken because I can't do anything about it.
Right.
Yeah, so I would just avoid doing that. And
try not to do timings unless you're like at a lower level.
As you play, you'll recognize stuff more often. But if you're not really understanding, just sit in your base. 2-1. You can even sit to 3-2 if you want. 3-2 melts everything.
Yeah, it does. With the right like army control, like 3-base Terran can come back. Like really, I mean, like if you control it correctly. You know, just know that you can completely dismantle a Protoss if you have the right positioning, the right micro. So there's always something to improve there. So, all right. So for the sake of time, we're going to move on. I mean, I know we have some of the questions. We had another replay that was submitted late. I'm sorry I couldn't get to that. Maybe I'll get to that kind of privately. But in the last 8 minutes, I do want to talk a little bit about, number one, the show. Number two, a couple of, you know, maybe some small initiatives. That's Gypsy, who's right here with us, might have... So this is the last episode of my show. This is the 6th installment. This will also be on YouTube if you guys missed it. You know, I think I was gonna try to see what I would do with the show at the end, and I'm still kind of thinking about it. Like for me personally, I've been kind of busy with a number of other things. You know, like with work. You know, considering a career change and doing a lot of things on my free time. So I haven't even really been playing as much StarCraft. So. I don't know. I'm kind of open to ideas if you guys want to suggest what I should do. It might not be as intensive as like a once a week kind of thing. I don't know if it might be like a once every 2 weeks, once every month. I don't know, or maybe even just make it like a talk show thing, like we're doing right now. I'm not quite sure what I'm gonna do, but I just want to kind of update everybody on where I am. If you guys are expecting more episodes, I think at this time I'm probably gonna like try to figure that out. With, you know, what I can kind of squeeze in my schedule for the future. But again, if you guys have like any suggestions, you can post on Team Liquid or on my Discord channel. I'll definitely try to take those into consideration. But we do, I mean, honestly, Gypsy's been in and out of StarCraft so much, but it seems like he's kind of back. But Gypsy, do you want to talk a little bit about like a couple of your events or your show matches that you're looking to host in the future, or are you not going to do it at all? Or are you just going to run away?
Nope.
You don't want to talk about it? Are you serious? You have 127 viewers.
No, I'm kidding.
Okay.
I'm kidding. I'm trying to... I'm just trying to organize some show matches. I'm trying to organize just I just want to make some content, right? And the first thing to me that came to mind was just a couple show matches, because it's probably the easiest logistically speaking. I don't really like running. I wouldn't imagine myself running a tournament or any league whatsoever, God forbid. But I really kind of want to focus on just like very specific events, like very sort of isolated events, and trying to provide some good content that way. Because I know sometimes, like, you know, I watch tournaments, and you know, the one-day tournaments, they usually like they just get so long, and I think we could benefit from like some really more concise, like kind of refined stuff. I want to see if I can provide that kind of content. I don't know how well it'll go, but right now I have a show match tentative. I would announce like the players and stuff. I mean, they're more or less confirmed, but I don't want to like say anything until I write the post and stuff like that, because you know, if it falls through, then it's like
you just announced to everybody, and like they're like,
I don't think I think hopefully I can. I'm not really good at organizing these things, but I just really want there to be stuff for people to look forward to. Like, I don't know, stuff for people to watch, right? I hope that you keep going. I hope that you keep doing some show in some capacity, personally, because I think we need more of that. I mean, if you look at, I mean, it's kind of hard with our community because it's so small.
Yeah.
And it is a bit fragmented between like the Europeans and the North Americans, right, and then the South Americans.
Right.
But I think, you know, if we look at something like StarCraft 2, like, you know, they have the Pylon show. I think that brings some cohesion.
Yeah.
I don't know what we would talk about if it was a weekly show. I mean, there's only so much stuff we can talk about, right? Because there's only so many things happening.
Yeah.
Which is, again, part of why, you know, I'd like for there to be more content. If anyone out there is thinking about making content, you know, you definitely should be trying to do it. Get involved. We definitely need more people in the community. We need more. I genuinely think there's there's a chance that we can gain more traction as a game.
Yeah.
We really need people that are committed.
Yeah.
And
that's the hardest part. Yeah.
I don't even know if it's about committed. It's not about long-term commitment more so than it is about willingness to contribute, right?
Yeah, for sure.
That's about it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's all good stuff. But yeah, I mean, I did want to kind of close with these remarks in the past, you know, in the last 3 minutes that we have, because I do have to get going. But yeah, this was honestly a great show. I mean, I had so much fun with this. Like, I didn't even know what the heck I was doing. I didn't know what works. Like, for example, like, you know, whether this replay thing was even helpful to anyone, or, you know, is the talk show more entertaining. But either way, I mean, I had fun. I hope you guys had fun too. I mean, this was just like a fun thing for me, just kind of like experiment with. But overall, it was really, really exciting. Yeah, I'm gonna try to see what I can do, kind of pending my schedule. Again, I think maybe kind of like a once a month thing, or even like a once a month like talk show. I mean, I don't know if you guys are down, but like that, I think that'd be pretty cool to, like, you know, recap on ASL, like maybe do ASL predictions, or like talk about meta and stuff like that. I don't know. We'll see. But overall, I mean, it was really fun. Sad to see the 6th episode come to a close, but hopefully there will be some more. And you guys can catch my episodes, my prior ones, on YouTube. But until then, yeah, just give me some feedback and all that stuff. And yeah, hopefully we can see what we can do. So peace out, guys. We appreciate it. Thank you a whole bunch to both Nyoken and Gypsy. Make sure you check out both their streams, and also maybe Gypsy's kind of show matches in the future. So be on the lookout, on Team Lookout for that. And yeah, so peace out, guys. Appreciate it.
Bye.
Bye. Okay. All right, guys. Thanks again for joining in, talking about some Protoss. You know what I mean? Dude, what the heck? Why you gotta be like that, man?
I'm going back to the Discord.
Are you even gonna do any of this? You know, show match.
He already left.
What the heck?
He already
dude?
left.
Oh, screw that guy. Okay. All right. Well, I have to go eat some dinner, but thanks a whole bunch, Nyoken. Peace out.
Yeah.